In April of 2000, one of the biggest rap tours to ever come through Boston was all the buzz in the city. DMX, The Lox, various other artists from the Ruff Ryders label, plus the up and coming rappers from Cash Money Records were all slated to perform on the star studded lineup. Also on the Boston leg as an opening act was hometown rap group Made Men. While many rap fans outside of Boston had never heard of Made Men, their reputation in the city preceded them. If many rap fans had never heard of Made Men or their music, they had heard of the crew's leader, Raymond Scott, aka Benzino. Benzino was known throughout the rap game for his connection and some say control over the influential hip-hop magazine The Source. By 2000, many in the hip-hop world were beginning to view Benzino and his crew as bullies who controlled the Boston scene with an iron fist. At the city's Fleet Center venue, DMX, one of rap's fastest rising stars, and his entourage were on a crash course with Benzino and his Boston Bad Boys. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. So today we have a fun video, one that I've personally wanted to do for years now for various reasons. One is that it took place during my teen years, a time that I will always look back upon and romanticize, to a certain degree anyways. The mid-1990s through the early 2000s, in my opinion, was the golden age of hip-hop. Never again will there be that number of talented artists putting out that much high-quality rap music. It's just not possible to do again. But another reason I've wanted to tell this story is because it goes back to a time in Boston's history where the rap scene was under the control of one man and his crew, Ray Scott aka Benzino, and Made Men. Many of the new generation of Boston rappers weren't even alive when this took place, and they don't remember the era when Ray Dog aka Benzino was the king of the city. Because of his appearances on reality TV shows and just the general pettiness of the social media age, many people now clown Benzino, but in the late 1990s, nobody messed with Zeno and the Wise Guys, aka Made Men, his quote-unquote rap entourage. I find it kind of comical how many young people speak so blatantly disrespectful on social media about Benzino or to him directly in the comments, but they have no idea how much fear and respect was met by Benzino and his crew when they rolled up in a convoy of black SUVs, 20 to 30 deep, showing up in the club, all rocking Averex jackets. So in April of 2000, which just so happened to be a few weeks after I got expelled from high school, sweet memories, a huge rap tour was set to come through Boston and play at one of the city's premier venues, the Fleet Center. Just 10 years prior, this would have been unthinkable with most rap acts playing in much smaller venues. I believe Slick Rick even performed at a local middle school in the late 1980s. Boston, which has had a long, turbulent racial history, wasn't inclined to let rap acts book large venues. But by 2000, this had changed with the huge commercial success of rap music. Ruff Ryders, led by their star DMX, who I just have to say is one of my top 5 all-time favorite rappers, was headlining a huge nationwide tour along with the supergroup The Lox and various stars from New Orleans Cash Money Records. This was a huge deal. Not only was this a giant tour that was going to hit almost every major city in the United States and play large venues and stadiums, but also put up a lineup of some of the East Coast best rappers with DMX and the Lox, but also the Deep South's Cash Money Records artists like Juvenile, BG, and future superstar Lil Wayne. It was also recognition of the South's growing influence in the hip-hop scene, which by the end of the first decade of the 2000s became the new center of the rap game. Even with Ruff Ryders, The Lox, and Cash Money's growing fame and commercial success, when they came through Boston, no matter how big they had gotten, it was known that they were entering the territory, at least musically, of one man and his crew, and that man was Ray Benzino. Some people might snicker at this, but it was a fact that by the year 2000, everyone in the rap game knew who Benzino was and were aware that he controlled the Boston rap scene with an iron fist. Even if people aren't familiar with his music, which honestly, if you go back and listen to the music he made with his original group, the almighty RSO in the mid-1990s, it's actually good quality underground East Coast hip-hop. But even if people weren't familiar with this music, they had heard of him through his connection to the Source magazine. Prior to the internet and social media, there was MTV, BET, and various local rap stations. My personal favorite was WERS 88.9, Emerson College's radio station. From 8 to 11 o'clock at night, after reggae and dance hall and before techno, there was 3 hours of great underground hip-hop that you could not hear on Jammin' 94.5, or at least you would hear it months before it was popular enough to be on Jammin'. I actually heard DMX's Get At Me Dog for the first time on WRS. I was like, what the F was that? That dude was just barking and yelling, and what was he doing? It was friggin' awesome. The Source magazine was started by two Harvard students in their dorm room. David Mays and Jonathan Schechter originally started The Source as a single page black and white newsletter to promote their hip hop radio show on Harvard's WHRB, which was also another great source of early underground hip hop. This is one of my biggest gripes with the city of Boston. It's because of all the bickering and infighting, much of the rich early history from Boston's rap scene has been all but lost. Many young hip hop heads have no idea about any of Boston's rich history, and many people from outside the area don't even know it exists. I wish there was just a better historical accounting of Boston's early hip hop culture. That's all I'm saying. Done with my speech. Anyhow, Mays and Schechter's newsletter blew up, and within a year, two other Harvard students joined the team, and with a $10,000 loan, they acquired a business office in next door Somerville and bought equipment that had the capability of printing 10,000 copies every 2 months. Within the first year, the single page black and white newsletter transformed into a magazine with full colored covers, and by the second year, it transitioned into the glossy 64-page monthly magazine that so many 90 kids remember grabbing at the newsstand. By 1995, when the Source magazine was at the height of its power, the infamous Source Awards took place, which started the whole East Coast West Coast beef, which began between Bad Boy and Death Row Records, and many people believe led to the untimely demise of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. Now, while many people think Benzino had complete control at the Source or was the outright owner, that's just misinformation. The reality was that by the year 2000, Benzino did own a piece of the Source and had ever growing influence and control at the magazine. In the early days, he was just cool with David Mays, being that Ray Dog was a top MC in one of Boston's first big rap groups, the Almighty RSO. Many of Boston's young talents would appear on various underground radio stations, doing interviews, giving performances, and this is how Benzino and Mays' relationship began, innocently enough. At this point in the late 1980s, Benzino was just a quality rapper in a popular group, but there were other notable acts in the city of Boston at the time as well, like Ed O.G. and the Bulldogs, Guru of Gangstar, and R&B superstars New Edition, with many of its members having successful solo careers as well. It wasn't until the mid 1990s when Benzino started becoming more well known for controversies than solely his music that he become more entangled with David Mays and The Source. It started around the same time period in 1994 when the Boston Police Union was boycotting the Almighty RSO's song One in the Chamber in front of their record company Tommy Boy Records, claiming that the song incited violence against police officers. RSO claimed that they were just describing the Boston streets were like in the 1990s for young black men. One of the biggest draws for the Source magazine was its coveted 5 mic system, which they used for grading the quality of a rap album. If an album scored well within the mic system, it was virtually guaranteed to become a commercial hit, while if it scored poorly on the mic system, the less fans would be willing to fork up their hard earned money for the CDs. It's alleged by former magazine editor James Bernard that when the almighty RSO was about to release their upcoming EP Revenge of the Bad Boys, Ray Dog threatened that if the album got anything less than 4 mics, he was going to put the whole staff in body bags. This coupled with the fact that David Mays was directly involved in securing RSO's deal with RCA after shopping around their demos to various record companies he had connections to. Although he has always claimed to have never been their manager, I'm pretty sure that's something that a manager would do. But because of all this pressure and preferential treatment towards RSO, Bernard and other editors refused to cover the album. Even after Mays personally asked Bernard to do it, he still declined. Mays then personally covered the piece, and when the rest of the Source big shots found out about the article, they had an emergency meeting and tried to have Mays removed. This backfired, and Mays' original 3 Harvard partners plus 6 other editors walked. Bernard ended up starting Double XL in 1997, which would become the Source's biggest competition. What's up, everybody? So you're in like my little secret lair here. Many of you have never seen this. I moved last summer, and I don't know. When I filmed here, I filmed downstairs in the living room. I used to film all my stuff at the old apartment in my old bedroom and in the girls' bedroom and stuff. So this is the first time I filmed up here in my secret new bat cave. But anyways, like I said, this has been a fun video for me to do because it's back in my heyday from I had just gotten kicked out of high school like right before this had happened. I was 17 years old. I remember when it happened. I remember when the Paul Pierce thing happened, and when I made that Paul Pierce video a few years back, tons of people were commenting saying you should make a video about the Ruff Ryders thing at the Fleet Center and stuff. And I almost forgot about that happened, but that was big news when it happened. And just back then, that time period in the late 90s, early 2000s, like Made Men and Benzino, they had that reputation, and like they just they would like move around like in the convos of SUVs, show up at clubs. It just when they showed up, their presence was felt, and they were feared and respected in the city. People can clown now and say what they want to say, and people just talk wildly on social media, but that is the fact of the matter. He was who he was. Like these things were real. That's not a figment of my imagination. Anybody who was around this time period can speak to it. Benzino basically ran Boston. He ran the music scene, and he was one of the most powerful people in the hip hop game because of his connections with The Source. You want to say hello? Daddy, I love you. I love you. I love you, Dada. I love you. Now, this was not a smooth transition by any means. Before May's original partner, Jonathan Schechter, left The Source, he was threatened by Benzino about the refusal to cover their new project. When Schechter contacted the police, he was advised by people close to him that he drop it before something bad happened to him. He followed their advice. Then on the day of a big press conference for RSO with RCA Records, James Bernard and Reginald Dennis, the two men who starred XXL, showed up to hand Benzino a summons to court. Realizing that they were there to embarrass him on the day of his big press conference, 4 members of his entourage threw them a beating, even throwing them through a glass door, which ultimately caused RSO to lose a deal with RCA and lots of money as well. As the majority of The Source cleared out, it's widely believed that Benzino began to wield more influence and control over Mays and the magazine. The rest of the rap culture saw this as well, and many rappers began to boycott the magazine, saying that the mic system was biased at the very least. Others were beginning to allege even bolder claims, like Benzino was using his influence over Mays in the magazine and its influential mic system to block certain people's careers or boost them depending on his personal feelings towards the artist, crew, or label. And if we've learned anything over time, Benzino can find many reasons why he does not like someone. YouTube boy! Throughout the 1990s, Benzino learned that by using these bullying tactics, he could not only control the Boston rap scene, but he could have a growing influence on the wider hip hop game coast to coast with his connections at The Source. So by the time the Ruff Ryders and Cash Money tour was set to come through Boston in April of 2000, most people in the rap game equated these two things together. Boston and Benzino had become synonymous with one another. You couldn't perform in Boston or just even go clubbing with an entourage unless you checked in with Benzino and his crew, which by now is no longer the almighty RSO. They went by Made Men or Wise Guys. There were still some of the original RSO members and some new ones at this point. But let's be clear about one thing. There was never ever a white member named Ghost in Made Men or Wise Guys, aka Sean Wick Hicks. He was never a member, okay? None of this guy's stories are real. He's delusional. More than just rappers, members of the entourage included guys from some of Boston's most dangerous hoods. Benzino himself was from the legendary Four Corners neighborhood in Dorchester, one of Boston's most violent sections. Zeno was also close with guys from the feared Corbett Street 915 crew, along with various other feared Boston hoods. Let's just be clear about another thing. Boston had a much more dangerous reputation in the 1990s than it does now. Like, it's not even comparable. And Benzino was widely respected in the city at this point. He used his connections to deadly Boston street crews to add the real threat of bodily harm if you went against him. Now, apparently the altercation that transpired between DMX's Ruff Ryders crew, the Locks, and Benzino's Made Men's crew was all over a misunderstanding. There wasn't any real beef that led up to the altercation that night. It seemed like the more power that Benzino and his crew obtained, the bigger bullies they became. Their reign as the bullies of Boston came to a head later that year in September of 2000 when Celtics new superstar Paul Pierce was almost unalived after being poked up by members of the Main Man entourage at a Boston nightclub. After this, the popular opinion began to change for Benzino. It was becoming increasingly clear how he and his crew were acting on the Boston streets, and people began to lose support for it. This, coupled with the losing feud to Eminem, his ever-growing pettiness with the mic system of The Source, along with all his other misadventures in reality TV and social media, has seen the remarkable fall from grace from the man who truly once ran the city's rap scene with an iron fist. People want to talk about gatekeeping nowadays, but no one has ever had that kind of control before or after. It's honestly kind of a shame that Zeno went about things the way he did. I feel like it kind of tarnished his and Boston's overall legacy, which is unfortunate because back then the man truly had power, and Boston was the center of his universe. Like I said, the altercation wasn't really over anything of any real magnitude. It was more or less an altercation that occurred over a misunderstanding with crews that both maybe had a little too much bravado, too much machismo, testosterone. For most accounts, the first night the tour was in town, a girl who some people say was DMX's girlfriend, some say she was some sort of female relative. But either way, she ended up on the Made Men's entourage bus, who was opening up the Boston show being the hometown teen. After having some sort of relationship with a member of the Made Men group, a Def Jam representative then came to the bus and started a confrontation saying that the girl was some sort of relation to DMX and she was making allegations. A fight erupted and the Def Jam guy was ejected from the bus. The next day, apparently DMX had gone up to female rapper Queen Pen and said, "I want to holler at Benzino." Some say DMX may have been a little aggressive with her, you know how X would get. I try to do my impression of DMX, but my mic won't cover it when I just start doing the barking and stuff. But just think of Cat Williams when he did the stand up and he was like, "Hey, yo, give me some water." You know, it's just imagine. I mean, it's unverified, but it could happen. Either way, Queen Pen relayed the message to Benzino, but instead of just going to talk to DMX one-on-one, Zeno mounted the cavalry and said, "Yo, X wants to holler at us." Devious, longtime Made Men and RSO member, plus clothing designer, who, by the way, created the Stop Snitching t-shirts. They were not created in New York City, they were created in Boston. Claims he was sitting right there and he heard the discrepancy between the invite and Benzino's order. So Benzino and his crew went over to DMX's dressing room and asked for him to come out. When X declined to come out, people in the entourage started threatening, saying if X don't come out, then every one of the Ruff Ryders is getting it. Now, no one really knows why DMX didn't come out of his dressing room. He never publicly talked about it before he passed away. But one theory seeing is how he was definitely not a coward. He was probably like, "Yo, I asked for Benzino, not his whole crew, even though they are a bigger piece of cake for me to chew a hole through." All winning! Nah, just kidding. All jokes aside, no one really knows why he didn't come out. But it's a reasonable thought, and I actually heard Devious mention this in an interview. I stole a theory from him. Fair enough. One person who did come out, though, is Lox' Styles P. He came out and he dapped up Benzino and he made it clear that it was all love. The Lox and Made Men were cool, there was no beef between them. Jada Kiss ended up coming out too with other members of the Lox and Ruff Ryders entourage. While Benzino and Styles P were talking, someone from Benzino's entourage threw a bottle of water at the other side, which they promptly threw back. Boom! A melee ensued. Devious claims that someone from the Ruff Ryders started handing out blades to everyone, and the fist fight quickly turned into a knife fight. Benzino was safely ushered away while Devious was not so lucky. He was poked up several times in the back but recovered at a local hospital. Now, for most of the accounts I've heard, even though Made Men started the fight, Ruff Ryders and the Lox got the better of them. There's a legendary story of during the fracas, someone opened up a door of the dressing room into the hallway and saw Styles P holding onto two blades with his nose gushing, saying, "I love this ish." The BPD came and more or less brought the Lox and Ruff Ryders into the police station for protective custody for the night. The BPD was well aware of Benzino and his crew's power and that they'd be out for revenge. They informed the Lox and Ruff Ryders to leave the city as soon as they left the station. Realizing it was all over a misunderstanding and there was no real beef, Benzino, DMX, and the Lox would end up squashing everything. Benzino and DMX even recorded together after meeting in person and talking things out, though it was never released. Both sides realized that nothing could be gained by continuing the beef. That night was the turning point for longtime member Devious, though, who after seeing the direction everything was headed, told Benzino he was through. Later on in the year, the Paul Pierce incident would happen, and Benzino would slowly lose control over the rap industry in the city of Boston, a handle that he would never yet regain. I felt like this was a great snapshot back into a time that most people now forget or simply weren't even alive or old enough to remember, but it's a very important piece of Boston's hip hop and really urban history. At one point, Benzino was one of the most influential and powerful people in the rap game, and his base of operation was in Boston. Like I said, he was synonymous with the city for many years. No matter what has transpired since then, you can't take that away from the man. He was who he was in the game. In my opinion, his obsession with control caused him to ultimately lose control, as it does so many people of power who slip into a state of tyranny. That might be a little bit of a stretch, like comparing him to a tyrant, but he did have some tyrant tendencies. But still, I believe, all things aside, the man should be shown some respect for the things that he did accomplish that no other Boston rapper has since. Just saying. So, as I clearly don't suck up to people like Benzino, and I can critically cover them, I do take offense to people like that dude Sam Bucked Up, who talk so crazily disrespectfully from the safety of social media. Bro, you do music reaction, which in my opinion is literally like the laziest form of content creation. I don't think you could even dream of achieving a fraction of Benzino's accomplishments. Plus, as even as an older man, he could still pound you. So I think people should just like that's the rule in my opinion is like you should act accordingly. If you wouldn't say it to someone's face, you shouldn't say it on social media. But at the same breath, Benzino is not a person to idolize by any means. Now, I'm not like, it's not my style to like talk smack and people call people out and stuff, but I had an interaction with this kid where he was just talking crazily to Benzino in the comments and just talking on Instagram, and I just was like, "Yo, man, like you claim to be a hip hop head, like you all you do is cover music, like react to music and stuff, but you're speaking so disrespectful to a guy who, even though he's kind of, made a mockery of himself and his reputation, like he was." A legend at one time. At least have a little respect for who he was. And this kid just started coming at me saying like, "Oh, dude, don't worry. Like he'll still bang you or something." He was just talking crazy, and they started DMing me, like calling me names and stuff. And I didn't react to it, but I'm just saying, like, he's just a typical person from the social media age who just talks out of the side of the neck. And I'm 43 years old. I don't really. That's why I'm not even on Instagram anymore. So Benzino, anybody who's gonna try to contact me after this video and get in my DMs, like, I'm sorry. I'm just like I'm taking a step away from Instagram, taking a break from my mental health. And so the people who like consistently are like threatening me and stuff in DMs who say that they're not internet people, like I don't know how much more internet you can be by threatening me through Instagram. If you really want it like that bad, like I'm not a tough guy, but just like I'm from the 80s, 90s, like where we sell things like man to man. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a tough guy, but if you want to do it the right way, we can get into a boxing ring or like a octagon or whatever, and you don't have to like send a bunch of goons after me or use weapons. It's not necessary. But anyways, enough of that because that's not my style. We all know this. Namaste. But anyways, like I say at the end of every video, make good choices, make good decisions because choices and decisions are everything in our life. It's what happens. Good things, bad things happen to us is because of our choices and decisions most of the time. A lot of things that happened to Benzino in his career were because of the choices that he made. And look at the story we just told. We're told. Try to take good care of yourselves, your friends, your family, your fellow human beings. Have a nice day, guys. I'll see you real soon with another video. God bless.